Um, I want to show you some clips from Memory Marathon today. It was screened at the ICA last night, but I want to show some it's a 2 and I think a 4-minute clip, just to try to return to them, interrogate them in some way, and just to try to tease out some of this theme that we're addressing today, this idea of being in the zone. And then I want to go on to just describe what happened this morning on the walk that we undertook, and try to also create something of a segue, something of a correspondence between Memory Marathon and this new work that was made today. Try to tease out some of the things about Memory Marathon that were kind of underplayed, or maybe had less emphasis placed on them during its production and during its subsequent screening. As Stephen said, the Memory Marathon was commissioned pretty much this time 4 years ago. It was 2009, and we were faced with the challenge of walking with. It turned out to be 104 different participants from Greenwich, from Thamesmead, on the edge of the borough of Greenwich, and finding our way in some way around the 5 boroughs. We had license to invent our own 26-mile route. Obviously, the premise of this piece of work is that there are memories will be recalled over the duration, over the distance of a marathon. The work itself was the route itself was structured in several ways. There's obviously, if anyone, you look at a map of East London and you try to stretch a 26-mile tendon around those boroughs, it will tend to a spiral. You can spiral a 26-mile route quite easily, kind of around through Tower Hamlets, up through Waltham Forest, through Newham, and into the Olympic site. But we were really interested in what other points of reference. What are the points of reference? What are the nodes, if you like, that might structure this route? What might they be? Well, there's knowing that we're making a film about the Olympics, and knowing that the Olympics was a contentious, controversial project, a project that was the latest in several attempts to regenerate, to impose a grand plan on the City of London. We were very aware that we should be paying attention to other moments when there were similar imaginings about what the future of London might be, what state it might be in. So we found some films. We found films that were made at various points in time when London was hoping to attract inward investment, if you like, when government money had been given to the city and its various corporations to overhaul its housing stock. There were other moments. We're thinking of if I recall some of the actual movies that we made reference to. There's A Clockwork Orange at Thamesmead, which is that particular Ballardian dystopian view of what the future of London might be. There was the film The Long Good Friday, which, if any of you remember, Bob Hoskins' character walks along the docks in what is now along the Albert Dock in Newham, and makes some outrageous statements to a police officer about what these actions, these sort of Olympic events that might happen on this site in 1988. And there's a scene shot on under the Tower Bridge when he addresses a group of invited guests, basically they're money men, people from New York. He's invited to try to persuade them that there will be a bid for the 1988 Olympics that will be made by London, and it will be a chance to bring this new inward investment. It's basically sort of mafia money will come in and will help to regenerate the Isle of Dogs and the Docklands and so on. So it's sort of prescient, sort of premonition of the state of things. There's also movies like Jubilee, obviously the sort of glamorous ruins that Jarman describes in his movies, and a more prosaic, a more everyday sort of quotidian film, which is actually turned out to be one of our major points of reference. A film called Sparrows Can't Sing, which is a Joan Littlewood directed movie, the first screen appearance of Barbara Windsor which describes Poplar and this part of London, actually into Newham, at a time after World War II, actually in the 60s, when the terraced housing was being cleared and tower blocks that subsequently actually been taken away were built, and people's lives were being transformed by this vision of town planning. So the route had these nodes, had these sort of film locations on its map. And this is something I'm kind of trying to tease out, and trying to re-emphasise this sort of connection between these films of London and its state of change, and our film that we made. So I'd like to show a couple clips. Maybe these aren't in any particular chronological order. So it's 12 hours worth of walking, 12 and a half hours worth of walking, condensed down to an 80-minute film. This clip that I'm going to show you is just it's actually hackneyed halfway through the walk, but it speaks for itself. I think it's kind of speaking of the legacy of an Olympic event.
Well, the pictures that I last time saw of the Olympic site were just one of the 5 Olympic rings remained. All the others were blown away in the battles over the Mount Egmont, where my family went for picnics when I was a child.
Yes.
The ski jump that fascinated me just remained as a ghost-like monument to something that existed there before the war. And bobsleigh run that I liked so much. You couldn't even go anywhere near there because it was surrounded with minefields.
So I've seen the site go from having all of the existing buildings and infrastructure, and seeing that demolished and all of the land cleared.
About 2 years ago, I was trying to get an allotment, so I went for a cycle. I found where there were some allotments on a map. Yeah. I cycled out there to find and whilst looking at the map for the allotments, I saw a cycle track, and I thought that was interesting. So I went to try and find these allotments, and I couldn't find them, and I couldn't find the cycle track either. And it wasn't until about a year later that I realised that both of those had disappeared as a result of the current Olympics taking over land and being built there.
So there's certain sort of continuing catastrophes that are described there. That was kind of the legacy of the Olympics. There's I'll just show you as well. This is to give you some idea of actually how little has changed. When I look out the window here, this was filmed very close to here. Actually, it's on the stretch that's just to the north of on the canal right outside of this building. But I'll play this just to so you can see what the place looked like 3 years ago.
All right, Simon, how you doing, mate?
Good.
Well, talking about
tell
Olympics,
me all about your Olympic memory.
Well,
we'll step on a pace as well.
yeah. What I remember about the Olympics is Michael Phelps, the swimmer. God, that geezer couldn't half swim, couldn't he? You know what I mean? Now, to swim like that, sure, like the geezer ain't a dolphin. You know what I mean? Because I tell you what, he now swims like a dolphin, and well, that's the only thing I remember. What I saw of him was this geezer was proper focused on what he was doing. Like his total concentration was just water. Nah, and his technique, the way he swam the water, was it was just I just couldn't believe it how this geezer actually swam, because there's ways of swimming.
Yeah.
And this geezer showed a different technique in swimming.
Yeah.
So maybe that last clip shows my attempt. I think I've probably seen me struggling there to get my participant into that zone. Actually, I think you see the young guy, the kid in the red shell suit top, that's staring intently into the camera. We use that to sort of demonstrate the sort of commitment and the focus of some of the participants, some of the people that he happened to be committed to a sports practice, but also gave an amazing description of sporting events. And to talk a little more about the method of how this work was made, I was obviously walking for 400 metres with each participant and trying to get them into to that point of being able to describe to me, to recall from their memory a sporting event, an Olympics-related event, and to bring that forward with some urgency, in a vivid manner, so that the visual aspect of that memory could be conveyed in this film. With that in mind, and to move on to the piece of work that I made today, it was also a kind of to re-emphasise this moment of having a moment of focus, to be able to place a participant in a piece of work, to focus their mind in some way, and to then conflate that with this idea of the kind of vision, the kind of envisioning that's captured in some of those films that we were trying to make reference to in the construction of our route. So I was kind of intrigued by how, when we were walking around the Olympic Park with these participants, I was asking them to recall quite often their kind of passive or their kind of sedentary watching of Olympic events. Mostly these were events that were watched on TV or listened to on the radio. They were kind of mediated events. Today, I took people out on a walk through the Olympic Park. Actually, there's a road that's now open through the Olympic Park, and did an hour walk around the park with them to try to find that moment when people could have their own vision of what the future might be, of what the future might bring, as a kind of analogue to the process that we imagine architects, town planners, and so on as having. And I've got a few images to describe that. So we took a group of 10 or so people out this morning. I briefed people, and correct me if I skip over anything or I'm wrong on this. Some of the participants that came out with me are here at the moment. Briefed them that we would stop 3 or 4 times during the hour, and we would find places where the view opens out into the park, if you like, where our future has been. I think it's actually a Sukhdev quote, I think. There's been an attempt through the idea of legacy to grasp the future, to own the future on our behalf within this zone. And I wanted my participants to be able to look into the zone and imagine their own future, have their own visions, be in that kind of have that visionary moment. And so we stopped at various points. They paired up, and they would describe. One of them would close their eyes and would describe to the other what they saw, a kind of closed-lidded vision, if you like. And I'm trying to draw out references here from Brian Gissing's Dream Machine, that kind of replication of what you see if you close your eye. I think for him it was closing his eyes while driving under trees in bright sunlight, that kind of flashing, the kind of hallucinatory experience you might get, non-chemically induced hallucination. And to describe literally what's on that screen that they're imposing between themselves and this vision that's been projected for us, that's now in the zone of the Olympics. And also a kind of play on Stan Brakhage as well, a kind of pressing your hand to your eyeball and kind of depicting what's seen there. So this we made audio recordings of the recollections, which I don't. Of the descriptions, which I don't have available yet, but I believe they will be. We'll make them available at some point. So, and this was a kind of novel, a novel way of doing this particular piece. Both participants closed their eyes and described in dialogue what they could each see inside their own eyelids as a kind of jointly described vision. So. Yeah, I'm gonna leave it there.